Good morning. Everybody good? What's up? So they asked me to come and speak, and I always like to start with stories. And so I'm a reformed hood rat from the projects of Detroit. When I was growing up, my most common interaction with people and enjoying people was understanding what it meant to build community around a food line. We had no money. Raise your hand if you've had government cheese before. Government cheese. Nobody that broke up in here? I was that broke in the projects. There's some adults, grown folks, right? That y'all understand, right? So the government cheese that we used to receive because we were on public assistance in the projects in Detroit made the best macaroni and cheese, right? So I tell you this story because I'm a reformed hood rat, right? And so part of what I want to do is talk about 4 life lessons that I've learned over my life as a person on this earth, and give you some things to think about. All right, so the first thing is that when I was growing up in Detroit, I had one foot in the school and one foot where? On the streets, all right? One day, my homeboy Mike called me. He was like, yo, you need to come down the block. I'm like, all right. So I go down to what I thought was his new house. What was he doing in that house? What you think? He was selling dope, right? So when Mike and I talk about this story many years later, right? So I'll be 40 this year. So we were 16 when this happened, right? 5 minutes after I left, Mike got shot, right? Somebody tried to rob him in the dope house, right? Years later, as we sat on my grandmother's porch, still in the projects, he said to me, man, I really wish I made different choices in my life back then, because the choices that I made then have an impact on my life outcomes right now. And he was 35 at the time, right? So part of it is as you think about your own experiences in schools. Raise your hand if you hate school. Be honest. Be honest, it's cool. Raise your hand if you love school. Nobody loves school? You love school? Really? She lying? She hated, don't she? In school, clowning. So the reason I say that is that Mike and I always talk about our experience in high school, right? And so people are always like, oh my God, you know, you're Dr. Simmons and blah, 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 blah. And I always tell folks, I hated school. Like literally, I hated school. Come in, Robert, sit down, shut up, open a book to page 34, and I'm sitting in the back of the class like, man, this is bullshit. Like literally, I said that to my teacher. He calls my mother like, your son was cussing in class. And I'm thinking like, what? My mother comes up to the school. It was the worst experience ever. Yeah, she put me on blast, right? And check this out. I was in the cafeteria. And I was, right, you know, y'all know how it is. You in there with your people, you know, getting it crunk. You know, next thing you know, here she come. And I'm looking like, Ma? She like, let me holler at you. She like, no, I'm gonna come in. So she comes in the cafeteria, puts me on blast. She's like, you wanna clown in class? Well, I'm about to clown you in the cafeteria. You don't even wanna know what she said. It was real foul and vulgar, you know what I mean? She cut a rug. But the point I'm getting is that I recognized early on that I didn't necessarily have to like school, but I also knew that school and doing school well was a vehicle to get to someplace else, right? And understanding how to do school will balance out in the long run, right? And so my current job as the Chief of Innovation and Research for all of the schools in Washington, D.C., at the current moment, right, the only space between me and the chancellor of all the schools in Washington, D.C. is air. That's how high up the food chain I am in public education in D.C. But my point is that I didn't get to that point because I was any smarter than anybody else. It was because I had my grind, right? And I appreciated how to do school. And I understood that if I sat in the back of the classroom when I was in college, it was a wrap. Why? Say it again. Go ahead. Say it again. I won't pay much attention. What else? I wouldn't learn anything. So I want y'all to hear me on this and remember this, right? When you go to college, there's the T theory, right? And this is the theory. So for everybody that says they want to do well in school, right? Number one, when you get to college, nobody cares how cool you are. It don't matter. So brothers, pull up your pants. Because you will get judged when you walk into that classroom based on how you dress. Am I saying it's right? No. One, I don't want to see your drawers anyway. But the reality of it is, when you think about this T, right, and this T being here and here, a university professor focuses their attention on the T, and we know that statistically, right? So if you're sitting over here and you're not in the T, is the professor going to know who you are necessarily? No. So if you're in between a B+ and an A that you need to go to medical school, where should you sit? In the front and in the T. I guarantee you, when I was a university professor, I always saw that, right? So that's one thing. So I want to go back to growing up, right? So when I was growing up, my mother and my father went to Spelman and Morehouse, right? Raise your hand if you know Spelman and Morehouse, right? So, but my father was a thug with a Morehouse degree. And there's a point to this part of the story, right? So when he was at Morehouse, he had an economics degree. And he was deeply involved in the civil rights movement. So deeply involved in the civil rights movement that I have a first edition signed copy of Coretta Scott King's autobiography, right? However, he spent all of my life in federal prison. I want you to hear me on this. All of my life. He stole my social security number because I'm the third. I go to college, I had an account at Dress Barn. Raise your hand if you know what Dress Barn is. What is Dress Barn? It's a woman's store. I call my mother like, yo, I'm trying to get this credit card, and they sent me a copy of my credit report, and I got something called Dress Barn on there. What's that? She was like, I think we need to talk. Right? Because I wasn't going to Dress Barn. I ain't know nothing about it. So as my father had this college degree from Morehouse, and he did hard time in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, right? He was into money laundering for the dope boys, all this type of stuff, right? And so as a result of this, the most tragic moment in my life was the minute I had to go to Leavenworth to visit when I was 13. I was in Kansas City visiting my grandparents, and they were like, we're gonna go so you can visit your dad. Boom! When the cell doors closed behind me at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, I vowed I would not be like my father. So the reason I tell you this story is that you do not have to be trapped by the conditions that you live in. You do not have to be trapped by the experiences of families, relatives, and parents. Just because people around us make bad choices, it doesn't mean we have to repeat those same choices. To this day, the last time I saw my father was in 1992. What happened in 1992 for me, do you think? What do you think? Do the math. I turned 40 this year, 1992, do some subtraction. Somebody said it. Go back further. Well, before my 21st birthday. I graduated from high school, right? So close. That was the last time I saw my dad, right? Was when I graduated from high school. He came to my high school graduation. But one of the things that I think is so important for young people, whenever I give talks all over the country or the world, I always start with this idea of forgiveness, right? So about a month or so ago, it was on my heart to call my dad and figure out where he was. And I called him and said, I just want you to know that I haven't talked to you in all this time, but I want you to know that I love you. And I want you to know that I forgive you because I'm the man who I am because of you and in spite of you. And he had nothing to say. And that was the end of the conversation. But in my heart, I knew that I had to forgive him. Because when we don't have forgiveness, and it doesn't mean I forget, and it doesn't mean that I want to have a relationship with him. It just means that I'm at peace and I can become a productive person. Because as long as we don't have a level of forgiveness in our hearts, we're going to carry that burden on our shoulders. Raise your hand if you can think of somebody you probably need to forgive and move on. Be honest, right? And the reason I say that to you is that it's not to tell you that you need to forgive them today. It's not to say you need to forgive them in 5 years. It took me 20-something odd years to get to the point where I could pick up the phone to do that. But it also motivated me to continue to do the work that I do. The other point I want to give you is this idea of resilience as a key term for you to think about as you matriculate from high school through high school and college. What is resilience? What does resilience mean? What about you, New York? In the red, New York, sir. Oh, I used to be a middle school teacher. I'll call you out. What do you think resilience means? Stand up. Stand up, man. You scared? All right, then, cool. What does resilience mean? No, don't call a friend. Don't sit down either. Phone a friend. Have a friend stand up with you. It don't even have to be a friend. All right? Oh, he not your friend now, huh? Go ahead, stand up. Yeah, right here. No, stand up now. No, you got to say it. What is resilience? See how they do? Friends ain't friends right now. All right, what's your name? Andrew, what's your name? Mel? Andrew, don't sit down, man. Give Andrew and Mel a round of applause for being brave. There we go. Wait a minute, wait, stand up. Hold on. What's resilience? Keep going. All right, I can get it. All right, cool. Give him a round of applause. So, one of the things that you're going to be faced with are tremendous odds in your life, right? What do you think my counselor in high school told me? Well, let me tell you my high school story, right? People always assume like, oh my God, you have a doctorate, so you were like smart in high school. I was smart, but into my sophomore year, I kid you not, they kicked me off the football team because I had like a 1.2. What did I like doing more than going to school? Kicking it. Yeah. You know, getting off the bus, not going to school. And then, of course, my mama came, and it all changed from there. Because then I knew she was certified to be crazy, and I didn't want to mess with her. I was like, whoa, I don't want to do that. Right? I was kicking it. Right? Skipping, all of that. When they kicked me off the football team, I was the first student athlete at our high school to be all-state as a sophomore in football, right? It shocked me into reality. I'm here to give you my testimony. Don't get shocked into reality like that. It is a painful experience. We went to the state championship game and I couldn't play. I had to sit in the stands. Michigan State University stopped recruiting me. right? Because I didn't have my act together in the classroom. So as a result of that, I had about a 3.8 my junior and senior year in high school. I finally figured it out, right? I scored like 1,300 on the SAT, about 32 ACT. So it wasn't that I wasn't smart. I hated school. But I needed something to shock me into doing the right thing. Don't let that happen to you. Because when you do that, and you had the grades that I had in high school, what do you think my GPA was when I graduated from high school? Even though I had a 3.8 average junior and senior year. 2.5. You know why? Because my grades were so bad as a freshman and sophomore that I couldn't pull myself out of the pit fast enough, right? But I did pull myself out of that basement. So it's possible. So if you're one of those students in here who has less than a 2.0, take my testimony and know that it's possible. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't let anybody tell you like they told me, well, Robert, you're at risk of failure. Right? Raise your hand if you've heard that. Oh, you're not going to amount to much of anything. Raise your hand if you've heard somebody say that to you. Be honest. Let's keep it real. Right? And so I had a teacher tell me that one time. Well, Robert, I'm not sure that you're going to amount to much, so maybe you should consider not going to college. Now, you heard the story about my mother, right? She came up there to talk to the counselor, and it wasn't pretty. She clowned in the office. Like, how dare you tell my son at 15 what he will become when he's 25 years old? But all of that started with my belief in myself and the transformation that I had to go through, right? I had to evolve to a point where I was a good student. The other thing that I want to talk about is this idea of respect, right? So we got resilience, we got respect, and we got forgiveness, right? So this whole idea of respect, raise your hand, and Andrew, I won't pick on you this time. Raise your hand if you could tell us what respect is. What's your name, man? I don't care, stand up. What, like what? I mean, for real? Shoots of your arms fall off. Yo, Jay, is it broke? Is it good? From about 30? See, gotta talk about, come on, man, stand up. You know, on the basketball court, you like, all right, cool, all right. Oh, football? Not basketball? Both? All right. What's respect to you? You want to call a friend? All right. Oh, we good. I got till like 1:30. I got a meeting to go to, so we good. We just gonna chill. The pressure's on you. What is respect? Give us an example. That's a good example. Lady comes to the door. Raise your hands. Ladies, give them a round of applause. Show love. Right? Oh, you getting dapped from your homie? Stand up. Stand up. Give me an example of respect. No, I want your own example of respect. How do you show respect in school? All right. I appreciate that. Give them a round of applause. Round of applause. Appreciate that. So, one of the things that I've learned over the course of my career, right, is this idea of respect and its value, right? How many people have heard you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar? What does that mean? What does that mean? Stand up. What's your name? Ariana. What does that mean? Give her a round of applause. Right on point, right? So, part of it is that respect has to permeate all aspects of your life, right? And so, I would travel probably 100,000 miles a year, flying all over the country, right? Respect got me onto more flights than disrespect, right? Because one of the things I've noticed is that when the airplane and the flight gets canceled and delayed, people just go crazy in the airport, and they get mad at who? They get mad at the flight attendant. They get mad at the pilot. But yet it's like a hurricane floating around that they can't control, right? But if you go up to them and say, dude, I know you're having a rough day. Man, can I get you a glass of water? You need some coffee? Oh, well, Robert, we're going to route you on a flight from Denver to Minneapolis, and then we'll get you eventually back to D.C., but we'll make sure you get out. As opposed to, dude, why y'all got me stuck up in here? Guess what? I'm going to be stuck in Denver. Right? Raise your hand if you believe that. Right? It's true. Right? And so I tell you this story because it's the same dynamic that you see playing out in your relationships with teachers in school. When you wild out in class and act a fool, it's not going to get you anywhere. Because who has the control and the power in the classroom? The teacher. But I want to come back to that. You have control of what? Stand up. Why? What, for real? Why do you have control of yourself? Can anybody control your emotions for you? Give a round of applause. So what's critical to keep in mind is that you're in control of you. You're in control of how you respond to other people. You're in control of how you respond to a teacher. So if you feel like a teacher is not giving you respect, it's going to end badly if you're disrespectful back to the teacher as opposed to following the policy of talking to the department chair, talking to your parents, and dealing with it that way. Because if you wild out and you get kicked out of school, what aren't you doing if you're out of school? Learning, while everybody else is, right? But part of this, what's that? I didn't hear you. Yeah, but street smarts can only take you so far. This only could take you so far. You don't know a old street hustler that's getting Social Security, do you? Huh? What's that? All right, I'm just saying. I'm from the projects. And let me tell you something, all of my friends, I tell you the honest to God truth, all of my friends that had street smarts, didn't do well in school and dropped out, are either in jail or dead, or struggling financially. Because there's no retirement for a hustler. It doesn't work that way. It's the truth. So anybody who tries to make this argument with me, well, Robert, you need street smarts. And I would agree with that. There's some value in street smarts, right? There's some value in that. Because that's all Wall Street is, to be honest. It's a game, right? It's a hustle. But the reality of it is you need to know how to play the game. And that game means going to class and leaving the street where? On the street. Because there are so many testimonies that people can give you about how far street smarts will get you. Is it useful? Of course. Because in the research we know that young people who have a lot of street smarts but also have a lot of book smarts go a long way. Why? Because they're very resilient. Right? We know that for a fact. So what I'm not suggesting, or what I am suggesting, is that you balance it. It doesn't mean you have to sell your soul. It just means you need to have a balance, to her point, right? That is useful. But you have to be in school. You have to be in school, especially if you want to go to college, all right? The last thing that I want to talk about is this idea of self-respect. Because you can't respect anybody else until you respect yourself. Hello? Now, when you respect yourself, for young ladies and young men, a lot of this is about how we treat other people, but it's also about how we treat ourselves. So if you respect yourself, you certainly wouldn't go into somebody's house with your hat on. Gentlemen, you certainly wouldn't go in to somebody's house with your pants hanging off you. Gentlemen. What'd you say? Huh? Go ahead now. Now see, don't get brave, and then when I say yes, what you say, like curl up, go in your shell like a turtle. Like, man, I'm from Detroit. I used to be a middle school teacher. I ain't scared. Let's talk, bruh. What's up? Yeah, I know you don't sag your pants. But the point is that this self-respect starts with yourself. So young ladies, right? Go ahead, bruh. Shoot till my arms fall off is applauding. What's your name? Say it again. Dwayne. I might talk to Dwayne after. All right. Dwayne, I'm gonna give you an internship in my office. We're gonna talk about that. So, the point of the matter is this. Young ladies, what is self-respect like for a young lady? Stand up. Who said that? Stand up. Say that again. Wait a minute. Hold on. Come on. Hey, come here. Give her some love. Show her some love. Come here. What's your name? What's your name?
Camille.
What is it?
Knowing your worth.
Applaud that. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Come on up here. I got to take my coat off now. All right, Camille, what is knowing your worth?
Knowing that you don't need a guy to show you love.
Ooh, Lord. Lord have mercy. Ooh. Ooh, Lord. Ooh. Ooh. We're going to say that again. We got to hear it again.
You don't need a guy to show you love. You need to learn how to love yourself first.
You got to see. So, part of the reality of this is that self-respect starts with loving yourself. And not loving yourself because you got a fancy degree. And I always tell people, whenever I introduce myself, it's people across the country who never know that I'm Dr. Simmons. I introduce myself as Robert Simmons. Because my grandmother told me, your self-respect starts with who you are as a person, not with the title attached to your name. So, as I conclude, I want everybody, males, females, adults, young folks, to understand part of my life story is built around this idea of respecting myself, regardless of the position that I've been put in. Regardless of what somebody tells me I can't do. Regardless of what somebody says is impossible. People told me it was impossible for me to graduate from college. I defied the odds. When I walked out of my neighborhood in Detroit to go to college, my Spelman-educated mama said to me, when you come back here, you're gonna be a better person. She put me on that bus with a paper bag. I had a couple changes of clothes, t-shirts, some drawers, and some toiletries. Now, I can provide for my son. Now he's 3, little guy. He's with my mother this week. And my mother's 62, so I call in the morning like, Ma, you still alive? She was all excited, like, oh, I want him for a month. I said, Ma, like, you should probably just start with 2 weeks, right? So last night she called me like, whoa, this is a lot of work. Like, yeah, it's a lot of work, right? But the point I'm getting at is that don't use me as a role model. Don't use me as an example. Blaze your own path to success based on self-respect, being resilient, because it's not going to be easy. If you believe it's going to be easy, you are lying to yourself. You're lying. It's going to take hard work. I had a report that I had to turn in today at 8 o'clock. I was in meetings all day yesterday from about 9:30 till 5, literally. But I had this report that I had to do for my boss that was due at 8 o'clock this morning. Guess what I did last night up until midnight? Worked on that report. Did I want to do it until midnight? Nope. I wanted to play PlayStation. Right? But the reality of it is that I didn't have a choice. I had to be on my grind. There was no choice. The very last thing I'm going to say is that you all should be proud of yourselves. You are an amazing group of young people. Phenomenal group of young people. As someone who sat in your seat, as someone who has, as a teacher, held young people in my arms who've been shot and dying in Detroit, as someone who has looked into the eyes of successful young people, as well as young people who are incarcerated, I will not lie to you. The world is a challenge for you. But you can make it. You can do it. You have to be resilient and believe in yourself and be persistent. God bless all y'all.